bought a $200 million house with cash. I'm sure it's very nice. I'm sure that if you look at what Beyonce's wearing on a given day, she's probably not wearing Walmart clothes, right? So nice stuff is not what keeps you broke. It's a matter of balance. Do you have balance? If you have balance, then you're fine. Just okay, I'm going to take 20% of my money and do whatever, and then the other 80% I'm going to put that into something constructive. And it's like even with NBA players, and all the money that they make, I always say that, gosh, if they were smart, they have so much money that they were smart, they would make a deal with one of their parents or somebody they trust that says, okay, if you're making $3 million a month, then you can have 20% of that money. Well, after taxes. So let's say after taxes, you're making $2 million a month or whatever. Let's do it like that to make the math easy. 20% of that money, you can do whatever you want. So out of that $2 million a month, you can take $400,000 a month and just act a fool with it. You can waste it. You can throw it in the garbage. You can take it to the strip club. You can buy Bugattis with it. Whatever you want to do with that money, that's fine. But with the other 80%, we're going to invest that. That's the deal Shaquille O'Neal made with his mother when he first joined the NBA. So Shaq had nice stuff. He had a big Mercedes with the Superman logo on the front of it. I remember that. So he had nice stuff, but he had balance. His mother and his father gave him balance. So he was investing while he was also enjoying his money. Never let anybody make you think that to be a good investor, you can't enjoy your money. That is simply not true. That's like saying that in order to that you can't lose weight and be fit and still eat ice cream ever. Like you can never ever eat anything good. You always have to eat vegetables every day. That's not true. When I went to college, they made me think that if you want to make good grades, you can't go to any parties. Like if you go to any parties, you're going to flunk out of school. That's stupid. That's just not true. My sister went to every party on the entire campus and even went to parties on other campuses. But the difference was she would study before she went to the party. So if she had a party that started at 6, she would get up, go to the library at 10 and study from 10 till 4, go home, take a nap, get dressed, and then go out at 6 and be out all night long. So it's not the studying that made my friends drop out of school. It was when it wasn't the partying that made my friends drop out. It was when they did not study between the parties. That's what got them in trouble, right? If you look at your time, and just thinking about investing, managing money is the same as managing time, right? So basically, the biggest thing that I ever did to help me succeed was I realized when I was 19 that there's 168 hours in a week. This is one of the epiphanies that helped me become the number one undergraduate student on the entire University of Kentucky campus. I won a Wall Street Journal award for being the top finance student. And I was also the number one Black student for my whole 4 years I was there, which was very surprising to me because I never made good grades in my life. My grades in high school were absolutely horrible. But the one thing I figured out was I said, wait, there's 168 hours in a week, 24 times 7. So if I sleep 8 hours a night, a full night of sleep, 168 minus 56 gives me 112 hours. If I go to class for 15 hours a week, 112 minus 15 gives me 97 hours left. And then if I study, I could study, say 40 hours a week, right? Which is like, I don't know what, 5 hours, 6 hours a day almost. I could study 6 hours a day. And that 97 minus 42 would be about 55. So I still, even after all that, have 55 hours to do whatever I want. So I would take that 55 hours and I would spend 30 hours working a job, or 40 hours. I worked full-time job when I was in college, and I made straight A's, and I had a triple major, and I got 2 bachelor's degrees in 4 years. I could have got 3. I just got a little bit lazy in my senior year. I'm not making this up. And everyone was baffled by how I did so much. They were like, wait, how are you making the highest grades? And I see you on the basketball court, or you have more money than everybody because you're working 2 jobs. It's because I figured out how to manage my time. And I created my system without deferring to other people and how they did things. I was a little bit of a loner, so I saw problems alone. I wasn't overly influenced by bad culture. So I didn't watch, what the other Black dudes were doing, when it came to how they studied, because a lot of my friends, to be honest with you, they didn't study that well. I was friends with them. I would play basketball with them, hang out with them a little bit, so I was in it, but I wasn't of it. So if I saw guys that were drinking too much and wasting time and acting a fool on campus, I was like, I don't want to do that, because I grew up in a family where there was personal responsibility. And if I get in trouble and I get kicked out of school and have nowhere to live, nobody's going to come save me like somebody's going to come save you. So that discipline, and I share these stories because I want you to understand the stuff that goes outside the lines. When you talk about investing, it's not just like this magical thing about knowing, what stock to pick or how a 401k differs from an IRA and all this other stuff. That's important. But you can know all those things. But if you have bad culture or just bad value systems, you're not going to be successful. You're going to fail, right? But if you have the right value systems, you're going to figure out what you need to know to put yourself in whatever position you want to be in. So anyway, not to dwell too much on the college thing, but literally when I figured that out, like I was like, oh, 168 hours a week. Okay, so I can do this and do this. Oh, I can still go to parties. I can still do whatever I want. I have all this time to study, and it's 6 hours a day. Think about this. If you're a college student studying 5 or 6 hours a day, you're gonna blow everybody else out the water. Because I would have the whole, between tests, we would read like 3 chapters or something, or 4 chapters and get tested on it. I would read all 4 chapters the first week after the previous test. So I looked like the smartest kid because I figured out, wait, if I read everything in advance and I come to class and I already know the answers, my teacher's going to think I'm smart, which I wasn't. I just prepared, So like to this day, I get our 12-year-old, I tell her, I say, what are the 3 P's of success? And she'll say practice, preparation, and persistence. And then if something goes wrong, I'll say, okay, which of the 3 P's did we violate today? And she'll say practice, or whatever, or persistence, right? So ultimately, these are things I believe, and these are things I think will play out for you as you're trying to, become rich, successful, famous, whatever you're trying to do, right? Just stick to your values and go hard and let go of bad culture. All right, so let me keep reading here. let me talk a little bit about something I was thinking about today with AI. AI is emerging as this powerful technology. A lot of AI stocks are AI companies are going to just be making money hand over fist. It's really stimulated the market tremendously because AI is kind of like this. It's practice, preparation, and persistence. That's what it is. Juiced up Reese. See, that's another one right there. Juiced up Reese. That's a bad Black woman right there. She has a great business. But anyway, so so AI is interesting to me from an investment standpoint because AI has kind of opened the door for this really extraordinary economic boom that's kind of happened in the middle of a recession. Like, so AI just pops out of nowhere, and suddenly AI is kind of driving the economy in all these extraordinary ways. And AI companies are able to go raise money in an environment where it's very difficult to raise money. And I don't know, give me a yes or no if you've been following AI. Give me a yes if you've been kind of paying attention to the AI tools that are out there. I think you should. I think that that's a good practice to get into. There's so many of them now. It's kind of crazy. Well, anyway, and if you want to invest in AI, I have a list of AI stocks I'm investing in right now. If you just go to boycewatkins.com, there's a list there. Just go to my website, boycewatkins.com, and the list of AI stocks is right there. But anyway, so with AI, what's interesting is not just that AI is a great economic opportunity, but I was curious about the threats of AI, right? Because I don't know if you saw this week, there was a fake AI generated photo of the Pentagon on fire that was distributed, and it caused the stock market to crash, like for about 2-3 minutes, maybe 5 minutes or so. I don't know how long it was, but until they figured out that the photo was fake, the stock market crashed. So literally about $200 billion in value was depleted just like that, from this fake picture. And here's the thing. It wasn't just, somebody messing around. It wasn't some teenager just trying to be funny. This was a specific strategic attack. And the reason I believe it was strategic is because one of the accounts that tweeted out the AI picture was connected to RT News, which is a Russian government-backed media agency. And then there was another fake account that was pretending to be Bloomberg that pushed out the image too, but it wasn't Bloomberg. It was a fake account. So they pushed it out to millions of people. And so these attacks are going to continue. They're going to get more sophisticated. It's going to get really messy. They can clone the voices of people now, right? So some of the scams are getting just really elaborate. Like one lady said she got a call from her brother saying, I was in an accident. I need some money. Can you send me some money and send it here? Like, just something like that. And it sounded just like her brother, right? So effectively, AI is just changing the world in so many interesting ways. So I was really curious to see, like, what are the threats of AI? What are the ways that AI can really really do damage to society? So I did some research on it, and there was a guy who worked for Google. I don't have his name in front of me, but he was they call him the Godfather of AI. So obviously he's important, and he worked at Google for a long time, and he quit Google so that he could go and talk about the dangers of AI openly. And one of the things that he was speaking about was a list of ways that AI could just be a huge threat to society. So I'm gonna give you that list real quick, just so you can kind of be aware of how things are evolving. He mentioned fake news, obviously, polarization. The AI can be used to cause people to just fight like cats and dogs, which is already happening. You're already seeing this everywhere. He talked about inequality, economic inequality. He said AI is likely going to be a tool used for the rich by the rich, and their goal is to eliminate the working class from their positions, right? So effectively, you have companies like Amazon. I think Amazon buys 1,000 robots a day. 1,000 robots a day. Now I want you to backpedal a little bit. Does anybody remember Amazon was having a lot of labor disputes? The workers were trying to unionize. They were complaining about the working conditions. They were saying we don't have time to go pee, and Amazon doesn't, treat us right. Well, Jeff Bezos and his crew, they're very much into AI. They're on the cutting edge. They're very much into technology. I would bet every nickel in my bank account that they are doing everything they can to say, how do we eliminate the human element in our production process? How do we minimize the number of human beings that are going to be whining to us about going to the bathroom or getting days off or working conditions? And so they're going to replace a lot of humans, probably hundreds of thousands of people, with robots that can work 24 hours a day, that will never ask for a pay raise, that will never ask for a bathroom break, that don't care about a lunch hour or anything like that. So I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm saying that this is what's probably coming. So one thing I reiterate to you is, I would keep investing. If you have any extra money at all, I would keep investing in the companies that are going to make money from this AI, because it's gonna increase economic inequality. This is what the expert said, the Godfather of AI. Also, he talked about something, this sort of threat of what he referred to as super intelligent AI taking control away from people. That at some point, there'll be some AIs that's just super smart, that can manipulate people like crazy, that eventually just takes control of everything, and it concludes that human beings are just worthless and stupid and need to be eliminated with a nuclear bomb or something. And he talked about it's something that I still have to research this to understand it, but he said that in the human brain there's about 100 trillion neural connections, and but we use about 30 watts of power. I don't know exactly how that translates into brain power, but about 30 watts. He said that a lot of the AI connections would use actually a megawatt of power. So I guess a megawatt would be about 1,000 watts or something like that, something close to that. So literally, 30 times more power in terms of, now they have fewer connections, fewer neural connections, about 1 trillion versus 100 trillion. But you're talking about a lot more brain power being applied. And he just feels like that could be very dangerous, especially when you put that AI in the hands of players that are just not interested in doing the right thing. Where's this going to go? I don't know. There's movies about it. There was a movie I watched one time called Mother, where this little girl was being raised. She was raised since she was an infant by a robot, and she didn't know any different. She just know that she knew that she was just on this spaceship by herself, and this robot was her mother and did everything that a mother did and talked to her like a mom, and because she was AI, and she thought that was her mom. And then through time she finds out that that things are not normal, like she finds out that, like, for example, her mother did stuff that was really logical but wasn't ethical. Like, in order to get the perfect embryo, she was selected as a perfect embryo, but to get the perfect embryo, it's called I Am Mother. Maybe that's what it is. Yeah, thank you for correcting me on that. yeah. So she literally went through like 1,000 fetuses and just killed them all, like would incinerate all these fetuses to find the one that was really perfect. And then, and then there were other conclusions that they'd come to that just said, human beings suck. Let's get rid of them. The world will be much more efficient if we got rid of them and started them over and trained them to think in a certain way, right? So that they'll be more peaceful or whatever. So to do that, we got to get rid of the bad batch and bring in the good. Almost the way we think about chickens. If you have a bunch of chickens that have bird flu, well, what do? If they're all diseased chickens, they kill all those. They just slaughter them. They slaughter 1,000 chickens, so they don't care. They're not thinking about the life of a chicken from an ethical standpoint. They're just like, okay, let's just clean it up and get a new batch and everything will be fine, right? So effectively, they're claiming he's claiming AI could do the same thing. I don't know, man. Hopefully I'll be dead by then. I don't want to see none of that. All right, so let me answer a few more of your questions here. Michael Watkins is asking, when using a stop loss, what percentage of the loss should people use? Is it off of the purchase price or off the existing price? Well, if you do a stop loss, you should pick it based on the existing price, not on the purchase price. So a stop loss is a type of order where you basically say, if the stock moves by this much off the existing price, sell that thing. Or if this, or you can do limit orders where you say, if the stock goes up to a certain price or down to a certain price or whatever, buy X number of shares, right? So you can kind of condition your order based on where the price is. A stop loss will be put in place maybe if you made a bunch of money and you want to protect your win, right? So you might say, okay, I made a 40% gain on this stock. If it drops by 5%, then sell it. Right, just, that way I can lock in my gains and get out of the game without losing. Should people use stop losses on their lifetime stocks? I don't, but you could. I could see that being logical. Just kind of saying, if it's too bad, if the stock is too crappy, I'm gonna just get rid of it. If it has too bad of a month or something, I don't want that stock in my portfolio. I don't think that's a problem saying that. Let's see here. Wallace asks, he says, when creating a covered call and selling the potential upside for income generation, how often can you sell the call option against the underlying stock? Okay, so you used the example in the previous video using Tesla to generate $7,000 a month. Yeah, okay, so that's a question, Wallace, for the Prime program, where we talk about selling stock options and generating income. But what I'll do is I'll answer that now. There's no set time to do it, right? I sell my options every week. Every Monday, that's my payday. That's when I go in and I sell my options and I get the cash and I use it for whatever, right? So you could set that kind of cadence, or you could do monthly if you want to, if you want like a bigger amount of cash available. And remember too that when you talk about selling stock options, it doesn't really work for every kind of company though. Some companies selling stock options doesn't generate a lot of money. The ones that do generate the most money tend to be stocks that have the most volatility. So the thing is, you have to find ways to manage that risk and cap off that volatility, or it'll punch you in the stomach when the stock goes down too much. But as far as like frequency, it's up to the individual. There's some people who do it even more frequently than a week. I don't, but I do weekly. I like weekly because it just feels consistent. So anybody who wants to dig into that more, I did a little training on this. You go to my website, boycewatkins.com. There's a training called How to Make Money Without Working. So feel free to go take a look at that. I'm a big believer in selecting the right stocks and selling options on those stocks as a way to generate income without having to actually do anything. That's because that's what I do with my own money. So feel free to go to boycewatkins.com. It's called How to Make Money Without Working. Emily Max Simmons, Ascisco Gold Royalties, or OR. Are you familiar with the stock? And what does it mean when you use limit orders when buying stocks? Okay, so I'll answer the second question first, and then I'll go to the first question second. Okay, so what does it mean when you use limit orders? Okay, so we talked about that. So if I have a limit order on a stock, like if I want to buy Google, but Google's priced at, I don't know, let's say it's $100 and I don't want to pay $100, I can put in an order that says, if this stock goes to 95, buy 100 shares. So that's what a limit order is. It's like, okay, I'll buy it just in case. Or you could also say, I don't want to buy it for more than a certain amount, right? So you can kind of say, if the stock's 100 and you want to buy it now, you might say, I'll buy it as long as it's not above 102 or something like that, right? So limit orders just kind of put guardrails on your purchase, in the event of a buy, right, or a sell. Now that company, Skiko Gold Royalties (OR), I did look that up for you, Emily, and I do like that company. The ticker symbol's OR, and it looks like something that I would buy. So I was impressed with that. All right, so everybody who's in the Zoom, if you have a question, you can put it in the Q&A section, and I'll look it up. If it's for a stock, I don't have the ability to look up stocks and research them like right now on the fly. So Johnny, what you can do is log in. If you log in at theblackstockmarketprogram.com, theblackstockmarketprogram.com, you can look for the little thing at the top of the curriculum section, and you can leave a question for me, and I can go and dig in and research that. Okay, so let's see. Mitch Hitchcock says, I applied to be a panelist at the All Black National Convention. Should I buy a ticket or wait to see if I'm selected? Well, I guess, yeah, you can wait and see. Maybe that might be a better approach, right? And anybody who wants to apply to be a panelist, we're not going to pick that. We can't pick that many. We kind of, a lot of the slots are filled, but yeah, with the panelists, we'll let you in for free for sure. And you can go to boycewatkins.com to learn more, or allblacknationalconvention.com. The All Black National Convention, in case you don't know, it's where we all get together and we just do Black people stuff in a very healthy, positive way. We have lots of panels and workshops on everything from family to wealth to crypto to to politics. And it's always a lot of fun, and it's like a big family reunion, and it's going to be in Atlanta this year, October 20th. So you might want to mark that on your calendar if you'd like to join us. It's really a blast. So you can learn more at allblacknationalconvention.com, allblacknationalconvention.com. All right, so let's see here. What do you think about Alibaba and other Chinese companies? Asked Robert. I don't have anything on top of mind when it comes to Alibaba. I'd have to research the stock. You can leave it for me for next week and I can look into it. Right now, I think China, I kind of stay away from China, to be honest with you, because there's just so much uncertainty there. There's the risk that we might go to war with China, and I don't want to own stock in a Chinese company, on the day that we decide, we want to bomb somebody or something. Like, that's going to just be terrible. And I got burned really bad on the Chinese investment. There was a company called Tekadu that I bought, and I just wanted to sell the options on the stock. And I made a lot of money on that stock. It was like an ATM machine. And then the Chinese government, just out of the blue, decided that they wanted to shut down the whole industry. It was an online education company in China, and they decided that children were too stressed out with online education programs and after school programs. So they just shut them down and made them into nonprofits just like that. Like, you can't do that in the United States. So when they did that, it killed the stock. The stock went from $31 to $3. I'll never forget it. And I was so mad about that. And, and fortunately I had made enough money from selling the options that I almost kind of broke even, but it's kind of like I didn't want to break even. It's like being in a basketball game where you think you're going to win by 30 points and you end up winning by one point on a last second shot. So it taught me a lot about, or reminded me, because these are things I kind of already knew. It reminded me a lot about investing in China, how things can change quickly. Also making sure your put options are in place. And if I had taken some of that money and just bought some really strong put options, then my losses would have been much lower because the put options would have reversed a lot of that loss. Let's see here. So in terms of, y'all got to forgive me. I apologize for the sniffling. My allergies are kicking my butt today. I don't know if the pollen count's high or not. So I'm looking here. Now, one thing about Alibaba, it's funny you mentioned Alibaba, is I just saw an article here as I'm looking at CNBC that says they're going to cut 7% of their workforce to pursue an IPO for that division, in the cloud unit. Okay. So Alibaba, I remember their CEO was having trouble with the Chinese government to the point where I thought they were going to lock him up or something. And he was like hiding for a while or had disappeared or something. Jack Ma. And so the Chinese government's really big on not letting companies get too big. And so Alibaba was on its way to kind of becoming the Amazon of China. And they just stepped in and were like, no, we don't want you to get that big. So these are the little things that the Chinese government does that makes investing in China somewhat risky. I think though, I did put together a list. I do own some stock in China though, or in Chinese companies, right? And I tend to be a long-term investor, so I didn't really mess with it, but I didn't add to it. So let me see here. I think that if you go to drboycechina.com, there's a list of Chinese stocks that I like. So I don't remember everything that's on the list, but I remember I liked the list when I put it together. So feel free to go to drboycechina.com and you can find the list of Chinese stocks that I've invested in myself. In these positions, I'm still holding them because I'm just a buy and hold kind of guy. Let me see here. I'm looking to see what else is in here. Microsoft's bringing an AI chatbot to data analysis. Okay, that's interesting. So Microsoft is kind of one of the big leaders in the whole AI space. They kind of made it super competitive, which is one of the leading debates in AI also is whether or not it should be open source or not. There's a company that kind of competes with the Chat GPT company. The company that created Chat GPT, was it called OpenAI? Is that right? And then there's like another company called oh gosh, I forgot what it's called, but the guy wants AI to be open source. So that's going to be an interesting kind of development. Also, how they regulate AI is going to be really interesting too. Now, one thing in terms of a stock that that I mentioned that I like that I just bought, I'm trying to remember what it was. Because I see the companies and I like them and I just buy and then just hold and whatever. So let me see here. Okay, so one company that Goldman Sachs likes is a company called Quanterix Corp. And the ticker symbol of Quanterix, I'm looking here is let's see, what's the ticker symbol of this company? Quanterix, the ticker symbol is, give me a second, I'm gonna find this. Hold on. Why is my machine moving so slow? My connection's bad or something. Sorry, it'll come up in a second. Here we go. It's QTRX, and Quanterix is a NASDAQ company. Now, one thing that's interesting about Quanterix though is that this, if you buy it now, you're going to be buying at a premium relative to what you could have bought it for yesterday. And that's because whenever a company like Goldman Sachs endorses a stock, the price goes up because everyone's like, oh, Goldman Sachs likes it, so so it must be good. So then, because everyone believes that, they start buying the stock, and when demand goes up, the price goes up. So a way to kind of approach that might be, let's say that you conclude, wait a minute, whoa, this stock just went up. I think it went up 15% in one day. So you could, if you wanted to, put in a limit order, right? The stock is trading at 22.30. If you believe that there's going to be a bad day in the next few, week or two, or next month or whatever, where maybe all the stocks just drop because of some sort of macroeconomic event, you might put in a limit order for like 20 or 19 or something, right? So, and the reason that might be a good strategy if you don't want to pay that price is, well, it's risky though, right? Because this could be the beginning of something big. The stock could be on its way to the moon, right? It could, be $40 in a year or something. But what tends to happen that's real interesting is where the stock market creates buying opportunities is there are days where all the stocks kind of get swept up in the same economic information, where they all get kind of treated the same. They call that systematic risk in investing. And systematic risk is just like where it's just bad for everybody. It's like if we're all outside and it starts raining, we're all going to get wet, right? And some of us get wet, more wet than others. Like if I have a raincoat and he doesn't, he's going to get wetter than me. Or if you have an umbrella and I don't, then I'm going to get wetter than you. Maybe if, how wet we get might depend on where we're standing, what part of the city we're in, how long we stay out in the rain, right? All these factors might vary in terms of how the rain affects us, but we all end up getting wet. So when a macroeconomic event happens, like the Federal Reserve decides to raise interest rates or something just changes, like, the debt ceiling negotiations go bad, what can happen is like all the stocks just get cratered and hammered, right? So what that does, though, in my view, is you got to remember there are some companies that are just bad. But then there's some companies that are good companies that just got caught up in a bad situation, right? Just systematically. So those might create buying opportunities, where you can go in and buy that stock cheap. And then when the macroeconomic news gets better, those stocks will, continue to rise, and maybe they'll even rise further than the mediocre stocks that are out there. So if you believe so when I invest in a company, I tend to just sort of look for companies that are just good companies that know how to make money in a variety of economic conditions. Like, so for example, I always talk about Chipotle. I just like Chipotle because they're just smart. They just, whoever's their team is and their board, they just know how to keep making money. They make the same damn tacos and burritos or whatever the hell they make as everybody else. Like I've been to 1,000 restaurants with food just as good as Chipotle, but for whatever reason, people love Chipotle, which is crazy to me. But they're just good at that. So when the market was down, I put a bunch of money into a big fat position on Chipotle, and I made a ton of money because I knew that the market was eventually going to reverse itself. How do I know that? Well, because that's what the market has always done. All the years I was at Syracuse and in my PhD program, all I did was look at stock market data every day, all day long, 10 hours a day for about 12 years, 13 years, literally. And that was the 13 years where I was on the faculty at Syracuse. I'm not even including the several years where I was working on my PhD. That's all you do. And the biggest trend that consistently shows itself is that the market it reverses. And then eventually, so when it drops and it goes low, everybody panics and so many people sell when at the absolute worst time to sell. And then it stays down for a while, and then everything passes, and then it starts going back up again, and then it continues its upward trend. If you look at the long-term trajectory of the market, what you'll generally see is just this general upward trend long-term. And good, strong companies like Apple, if you look at Apple, Warren Buffett has made most of his money in the last 6 years off of Apple. He just bought a bunch of it, he sat on it, and he made a killing from it. He probably made a good $20 billion, $30 billion off of Apple or something crazy like that. So effectively, one of the things you want to think about when it comes to investing, this will be the last point, we'll talk about, and then I'll let you guys go until next week, is I always tell you guys that time is money, but time is more important than money. And time is the most important variable when it comes to investing. Why? Well, because time tells you, how money grows. If you give something enough time, then it can grow into almost anything, especially if you're on the right trajectory. Like if I get in a car, even if it's a slow car, if you give me enough time, I can drive that car all the way to Los Angeles, right? So the speed of the car is not as important as, the direction that I'm driving and that I'm driving consistently. That's really what matters long term. And also time isn't just important in terms of building wealth, because remember, I just explained to you guys, like, it's important in terms of building wealth. And another way it's important is, like, for example, if you show me any poor family in this country, if you give me enough time, they can become a wealthy family. The question is, what direction are you on? If you put them on the right path, like, okay, all right, so you're making minimum wage, take that little amount of money that you might have spent on fast food or whatever, do the $5 a day plan or whatever. You guys have seen this. And then in a generation, less than a generation, you'll rise up the economic ladder, right? So again, it's time mixed with trajectory. You have to be on the right trajectory. So you can't, you have to let go of poverty mentalities and poverty culture, and you have to engage in wealth building culture. You do that, the right trajectory, given enough time, they'll be fine. The other area that time matters, and I was thinking about this when I was in the shower, is that time is heavily connected to risk. A lot of what you perceive as risk, when they talk about risk in the stock market, a lot of it is heavily time dependent. And what do I mean by that? Well, if I know, here's the thing, if I know that the stock market is generally on an upward trend, and we have a really terrible 6 months, and the market just crashes and drops and everything's bleeding and whatever, if I just shut my eyes and wait 2 years, it's going to typically come right back to wherever it was. So everything that you were all freaked out about and nervous about that had you ready to bail out on your 401k, it goes away. And then you look back 2 years later and you're like, oh, look at this, my money doubled, or I have an extra, 50,000 in my account. So risk, what we define as risk, And I'm not speaking to you as just some guy running his mouth, on the internet. I studied risk management, like under a guy named Renee Stoltz. He's one of the top 2 or 3 risk management experts on the entire planet. I edited a whole textbook for him when I was in grad school. Risk goes away typically if you have enough time, right? So I think of risk like the way you think about like a rainstorm that's happening outside your house. If somebody says, okay, it's raining outside your house, are you going to get wet or not get wet? Well, it depends on how much time you have. Now, if you got to go to work in 5 minutes, then you're going to get wet because you're going to have to go out in the rain and, to go to your car, right? But if you got time, you say, no, I'm going to sit in the house and watch football all day. I'm going to go out tomorrow. I'm going to go out Tuesday. Then you're not going to get wet. So the risk is like the rain. The rain doesn't hit you typically if you have enough time. You understand? Does that make sense? Give me a yes if that makes sense to you. I know it. I know it's a little bit weird and maybe different from what you might have heard in other places, but this is the revelation that I've come to. And so when you take time out of the process, a lot of risk just goes away. It just goes away. So one of the things they always recommend when it comes to investing is they recommend that older people invest more conservatively than younger people. Most experts will tell you that when you're young and you invest, like when you're buying stocks for your children, or which everybody should, every Black person that wants to be wealthy and powerful and strong and financially capable, you got to buy stock for your kids. I'm so extreme. I feel like you're abusing your kids if you don't buy them some stock when they're babies. I am that hard about it. Like I'm pushing you that much. Okay. But they say that when your kids are young, they should take on more risk. Well, the main reason they can take on more risk than a senior citizen is just because of time. A senior citizen may not have enough time to wait out the storm. If the market crashes and it takes 5 years for it to recover, well, that 70-year-old may not have 5 years to sit around and wait for the market to get better. But a 5-year-old does. A 5-year-old can wait forever. They don't have to look at their stocks for 20 or 30 years, right? So if you take time out of the equation, a lot of risk just goes away. But that's really a metaphor for life. When they have terms like this too shall pass, or just thinking about, like living your life based on a certain set of principles where you're not worried about what's going on right now. You're thinking long term or whatever. Time, when you take time out, it changes all of your decision making, right? So don't get caught up in what's happening right now. Stay focused on that bigger picture. If you can stay focused on the bigger picture, then you're going to make different decisions from people who are just reacting to what happened yesterday. And I can tell you the people that can see that bigger picture are able to do far better financially than people who get caught up in what happened at a specific moment in time. So time is powerful. Time is a very heavy financial concept. I spend a lot of time thinking about time, like everything from, like I concluded, for example, that time travel is not possible. Like I think about stuff like that, and it comes from doing like advanced, like mathematical stuff related to time and finances. And the best thing I would like to be able to do for you that I think I can offer you is that I can talk about these ideas in a way that makes sense. That's very simple, right? Like I love to break it down to analogies, but I think understanding things that way gives you a huge advantage over people who don't understand these things. So just be patient. This too shall pass. The market's down a little bit, but 2023, when you hit 2030, 2023 won't even matter that much. You won't even remember that much about 2023. Think about it. What do you really remember about 2017? What do you know this about 2017 that makes it different from 2015 or 2019 or 2018? It's hard to see that. It all kind of blobs together eventually, right? So 2023 is going to do this. It's going to just be a big blob. It's going to be part of this whole sequence of memories, and you're not going to be able to distinguish one from the other. So just focus on the big picture. I hope that helps. That's my last thought for today. And thank you for letting me express it. I know I was a little long-winded with that, but it's an important concept that I think you should understand. Time and money are deeply connected, almost like brother and sister. So if you understand one, you should understand the other. If you understand them both, then you're going to win. All right. So anyway, guys, I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for listening. Just a reminder, next week, we're going to do stock market investing class again next Tuesday. If you're in the Prime program, passive recurring income machine, where we do stock options, We're going to meet on Friday night at 8 o'clock. I sent you all a text. So if you didn't get the text, check the login and you can get the access to the Zoom code. If you want to join us in Prime, just go to boycewatkins.com. There's a training called How to Make Money Without Working. That's where I explain everything that we do. And you can decide if you'd like to join us. It's a great way to make extra cash flow if that's what of interest to you.